major severe weather outbreaks are going to be possible over the next couple days and over the next week, and we're having to watch it very closely. And diving right into things, on the day one outlook, the Storm Prediction Center has outlined a moderate risk of severe weather for today across portions of Tennessee, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. Damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes appear likely, and even some long track and strong tornadoes are likely today. But don't get too caught up in the risk area, because even in the enhanced and slight risk, there is still a chance for you to see a tornado. And even in the marginal risk, you need to be prepared. So just make sure you are staying weather aware today. As if we go ahead and move here to the tornado outlook, you can tell we do have a 15% hatch tornado risk. That is representing a 15% chance of a tornado happening within 25 miles of any given radius. That is in that 15% risk, along with anywhere in that 10% hatched risk right here. It is representing the probability of a EF2 to EF5 tornado within 25 miles of any given radius, and that is a 10% probability. Moving on to the severe wind, this actually looks to be more dominant, but it does look as if we've had a shift to possibly even a more tornadic storm mode, supercellular I should say, which could pose a more tornadic threat. But as you can tell, a 45% hatch damaging wind threat has been put in place by the Storm Prediction Center, along with a 30% chance of damaging winds. So just make sure you're staying weather aware and have multiple ways to receive alerts. And we do have a 30% hatch, along with a 15% hatch damaging hail threat. Tomorrow, the severe weather threat is actually the lowest that it is going to be over the next 5 days. And you can tell we do have a marginal risk of severe weather back in portions of Utah and Wyoming. So watching that, nothing too severe. We do actually have 2 slight risks tomorrow. One back here in the Arklatex in the south central plains, and one back here along the east coast up into the northeast, like New York. So, got to keep an eye on that. We do have a 5% tornado risk back here in North Texas. So, we're going to keep an eye on that as well. And we do have a very large 2% tornado risk across the east coast and the northeast for tomorrow. The severe wind outlook is driving our Wyoming and Utah marginal risk, but you can tell the hail does look to be a bit more on the severe side back here in portions of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. So going to keep a close eye on that. We may get an enhanced risk for some hail, but not entirely sure. You can tell here on the day 3 outlook, it's not going to stop. We do have an enhanced risk of severe weather, but we have a slight risk of severe weather on the outside of this. But I am looking at this. This does look to be pretty concerning now. So we have to keep an eye on that. And if we go ahead and pull up the severe weather probability, you can tell we do have a 15 and a 30% hatched risk. This means that there is a 10% probability of wind gusts exceeding 74 miles an hour, hail exceeding 2 inches in diameter, or a EF2 to EF5 tornado occurring in that area. So we are keeping an eye on this very closely, but we have another intense day of severe weather ahead. Monday, the SPC has outlined a 30% risk of any severe storms happening within 25 miles of any given point in that area. But we have a very large risk as well for a 15% chance. And I want to point this out. This is a pretty small risk, but I do expect a bit of expansion, maybe even across that area. And this is a day I would not be surprised if we do see another moderate risk of severe weather. because the ingredients are really coming together for Monday like they are today. You can see here Tuesday we have yet again another very large risk of severe weather from portions of Iowa and Missouri back through the Arklatex region. So we are watching that very closely. I would not be surprised if we did get a pretty large 30% risk of severe weather tomorrow. Moving on to the models for today, we are going to see that we do have storms ongoing right now. And then you can tell around 3, 4 o'clock, we're watching these storms to see if they are going to fire off back here in Missouri. And any storm that gets in this environment right there is going to be favorable of damaging winds, large hail, and even a few tornadoes, maybe even a strong tornado or two. But you can tell we have multiple supercells going up, and they do turn into that more linear structure there. But we are watching around this time period right here between 6 and 7 o'clock. If we go ahead and look at surface-based CAPE right now, you can tell there's quite a bit of CAPE, and the supercell composite is actually up there too. But the significant tornado parameter, it is high across a very large area. Across this area right here, it has very high STP values, but we're watching all across this area for the chance of a tornado and even a strong tornado. As you can tell, as these supercells do push to the east, we are going to still be in a very favorable environment for strong tornadoes. So if they do stay discrete or even semi-discrete, they are going to pose the threat for a strong tornado. Moving on to the NAM-NST model, you can tell those ongoing storms this morning. And then the thing is with the NAM-NST, it does not have these popping up as discrete cells. It has them popping up as a line of storms and kind of pushing out. But I will say, around once they get to eastern Missouri, it does have them breaking apart. And then you can tell that's kind of best case scenario here, because it does actually make it to where it does not look like a much as a intense line of damaging winds is going to be pushing through. So we hope that what happens here is what actually does happen, but we can never be too sure. So we are actually going to have to watch these storms too that try and fire up ahead if this is how it plays out. There are no guarantees. This is one model and one model only, so you have to be taking that into consideration, that there is going to be some differences in between models. And like the HRRR, we are watching a large region for the threat of a strong tornado or two. So any of these prefrontals, if this plays out, that get into this environment are going to have a very high threat of tornadoes being possible. Moving on to just the NAM now, you can tell it does have a bit more linear, but it's not as linear as what the NAM-NST was showing. So if you go and look at surface-based CAPE, there's quite a bit of it. And the significant tornado parameter, it is still high as well. And it looks like our highest area is coming around 4 to 5 o'clock, around 6 across this area. So we are going to keep an eye on this very closely. Now moving on to what we could see next week, but first, what is driving the setup today? We do have a low pressure system spinning back here, as this is actually going to continue to spin. But as you can tell today, it actually digs. So it is giving this flow here that is bringing in tons of moisture and spin right across this area. So we are keeping a very close eye on it, as this definitely has the potential to be very significant. So that low pressure will go off the coast, and we can see our next low pressure system is developing and is trying to dig its way here. Right here for Sunday, we are watching this right here. Until we do have this flow, it's not very intense right now, But if we do go ahead and push it forward a little bit, you can tell it does become more intense once we do get into Monday. We actually have this negatively tilted trough, which means that we do have a higher tornado risk across this area now. And it's already thinking to be more elevated, and this does not help it. And we are getting this pull right here of a ton of moisture. And if we go ahead and look right now at the dew point temperature, you can tell we do have dew points, as the dry line actually has looked to set up a bit farther to the west today. So as you can tell, like last night, it was about here in central Oklahoma, around Oklahoma City. Now it's a bit more to the west. So we are watching dry line initiation. You can tell a very favorable environment. So we have to keep an eye on this. If we go and play it forward, yeah, that dry line is setting up a lot farther to the west. So make sure you are staying weather aware, as this has the potential to be very significant. If we go ahead and look here at convective, actually precipitation, and go to simulated reflectivity, you can tell we are going to be watching for storms. Now, it does advance a few hours, so we do have storms across this region, and we are watching, because our dry line is set up out here, we are watching any storms that go up along the dry line to start pushing northeast into this very favorable environment. And if we actually go ahead and take a look at convective now and surface-based CAPE, you can tell we did get a amazing pull of CAPE here into Oklahoma and Texas. So there is quite the instability that is going to be there, and lots have already changed, and more is going to change. Go ahead and look at the European model. Thought I'd show you this. It gives a better picture, I feel. So here we are on Sunday. You can tell we're watching up there in Kansas. And then for Monday, you can tell it's been showing this, and I do think this could happen. I do expect it will be more scattered and not more clustered like it is on here. But that would be very bad if that does happen, what the Euro is showing. If I stop it right there, go ahead and change this to most unstable CAPE, there is quite a bit of instability. If I back it up, there is a lot more, but we are going to have to keep an eye. If we look at bulk shear, there is some wind shear there too. And if we go and look at the 500 millibar, we do also have a negatively tilted trough. You can tell right here, it's negatively tilted. The winds that are being pulled are not as strong, but we're still having to watch this area for severe weather. So just make sure you're keeping an eye on it. Then my graphics that I make, here's the severe potential today for Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Tennessee. I have the tornado risk at a high, the wind risk at critical, the hail risk at moderate, and the flooding threat at low. Now, I also make this, and it is the watch probability. So today, I have a high risk of any level of a watch being issued, and I have a high risk of a severe thunderstorm watch being issued somewhere. I have a high risk of a tornado watch being issued somewhere. I do have moderate confidence that a PDS tornado watch may be issued across our moderate risk today. Then I have a low threat of a PDS severe thunderstorm watch, and we do have high forecast confidence in this storm system. So make sure you are staying weather aware, as we are going to have to keep watching this very closely. And make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you are new here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.